Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Farside. In this episode, I'll be chatting with Jihad, who's a very dear friend of mine and one of the most incredible thinkers and operators in the Web3 space. Today, we'll get to know about Jihad's background. He was previously at Syndicate and Forefront DAO, and now currently building Believe in Something, which is an incredible initiative on the higher ecosystem. Excited for this episode, so yeah, let's get to it. Hi Jihad, welcome to Farside. I'm so excited to have you here. Would love to have you introduce yourself real quick and then we can kick it off.
For sure. What's up? What's up? I'm excited to be on. I've been like a fan from afar, even though y'all have been chatting. So yeah, just very excited to be here. So I guess I'll work from the back. I got into crypto around like 2020, 2021. I was running a creator growth agency at the time. And around the end of that project, I had gotten really into NBA Top Shot. And a bunch of the creators that we were working with were like big basketball creators in LA. So I was pitching the creators that we were working with on Top Shot because they would do these like trading card pack opening videos where they would go to a store and just buy a bunch of basketball cards and then see if they got a rare one. So I was like, you could literally do that, but with Top Shot cards. And it would just be, and they'll sponsor you. And I like hooked them up with a deal and they wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. And I was really bad at explaining it at the time. So that agency ended up getting acquired and I just went all in on crypto. So started getting very into the early social token scene, like early Seed Club, Forefront, and then like 6 months later, Cabin and Kraus House and that whole scene. And then eventually took a full-time job at Syndicate, building DAO tooling as one of their first GTM hires. And did that for about a year, but was still actively involved in, DAOs from Gitcoin to Forefront and the whole Seed Club ecosystem. And was really trying to figure out like what was here, right? I think a lot of us had really big visions for what DAOs could be at the time. Being a participant, but then also building tooling forced you to get very practical about what actually was going to happen with these forms of organizations and how people were actually going to end up using them. So after a year, ended up leaving Syndicate and going back to Forefront and decided I just want to do the DAO thing and like be on the ground and figure out, is this sustainable? Can it be successful? And then I ended up running product and media at Forefront for about a year and a half. And that answered a lot of my questions, which I'm sure we can get into. And then the last 6-ish months have just been independent consulting in the Farcaster ecosystem. So working with a bunch of different projects, particularly in like this media/creator vertical. Like, how do you onboard creators? How do we think about creators making money on chain? Are there net new business models here, or is it really just access to a more global network? And like there's a lot of fundamental, but also like much bigger questions that I think have still yet to be answered. So working with startups to answer those.
Yeah, amazing. So guys, for some context, I've known Jihad for like around 2-3 years now, which is crazy. It doesn't feel that long. And when we met at ETH Denver, I remember you were telling me about Syndicate and Forefront and your kind of whole, I guess, thesis around DAOs. Before we get into like the Farcaster side of it, I'm curious, what did you learn and take away from like Forefront before you left? I'm curious, like what has changed on your thesis side about DAOs and what are some learnings from that? And like, how are you using that right now in your life at Farcaster now, if that makes sense?
I think if you would have asked me this question 6 months ago, I would have been much more pessimistic. And now I'm on an optimistic upswing as I've seen things play out. When I was at Forefront, I wrote this essay called Tokenized Communities. And my thesis was that tokenized communities are a subset of DAOs specifically focused on allocating funds to community projects. So quite literally, it was just there's a brand or some sort of mission or worldview that this community is trying to push forward, and there's a collectively governed treasury, generally governed by some sort of token, and then token holders are able to vote and fund projects that are proliferating the brand or moving you closer toward the collective mission. Nouns at the time was like the best example of a tokenized community. And I was like, okay, Forefront is going to become a tokenized community. And I realized very, very quickly that the number one most important aspect of that entire thesis actually had nothing to do with being on chain, but it was like, does this community have a collective mission, or are they aligned around a set of values? Because if you don't have that, then implementing any tech stack is not going to get you any closer to doing anything cool. So, and I think Nouns was actually the exception to this rule. Like Nouns was the first to have this perpetual funding model. So then people just started buying into Nouns, but did Nouns really stand for anything? Did people actually fully understand what the Nouns brand was? I would argue no.
Mhm.
And to this day, I think Nouns finds itself in this position where it's very Lindy, like,
Yeah,
but it's people still don't know what it stands for, right?
I
So
agree.
fast forward to today, and got onboarded to Farcaster, started getting more active, mid last year, and L2s began to get hot, and you saw a lot more people start to experiment with a lot of the token ideas of 2020, 2021, 2022, and running into the same walls, right? Like, yes, you launched a token, but what is this token for? Yes, you launched a
Yes.
token, but like, how are you allocating it into people's hands that are actually going to use it for the purposes that you set? And more broadly, like, the fundamental question became, before you could do anything with tokens, you need a community of people that believe in something,
Hmm.
right? So that's been my whole, I guess, thesis, or like thing that I'm memeing on Farcaster the last 6 months, is like the limiting reagent here is actually no longer the tech. Like the UX needs to get better, of course.
Yes.
We need better ways of onboarding people, but really we just need cool ideas and reasons for people to come on chain outside of the tech itself. And for that, you need people, you can't just talk about building community in theory unless you have a reason for people to come together and do things together. And like those are the things that we actually need to create.
Give
So
them a
that's,
reason.
yeah,
Yes.
that's the spiel right now, which I think has always been true, but is only more true now as the tech has gotten better.
Yeah. Okay. I was so happy you brought up, first of all, this whole tokenized community thesis that you had. You were very early on that, and now it's like proven to come into play now, especially in the Farcaster ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
You have Degen, Hire, now Proxy as well. You know, my last episode of Proxy, we were talking about this exact thing. The community, I mean, at this stage right now, I feel like what Farcaster is all these like people that have learned from like the past tokenized community mistakes and have now refined that strategy in a way, right? Like it's all concentrated bets on like very specific values, right? Noun was very, I feel like, experimental in a way where they didn't really understand like what direction to go in. Whereas with what you see on Farcaster now, it's very concentrated
Mm-hmm.
in different alleys, right? So you got like Degen, which kind of proven and blew up basically in like this whole area of tipping. Just it's more of a culture, right? You're not People aren't in it as much for the money. It's more of a culture. And then now you have Hire, which we'll get into. Hire, I just find very interesting because there's no core team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Degen, you have like a core team that is actively building out the L3 and like prioritizing how the strategy around the token works. Hire doesn't have that. It's kind of like an open ground play, which is interesting. So is that why you chose to like go in the direction of Hire? Just because it's very open and like the amount of use cases that you can attribute to Hire are more IRL and like relatable to the masses?
I think so. I want to talk about Degen first because I think that'll help me answer the
Yeah.
higher question. I think in my mind, I sort of categorize Nouns and Degen in the same. They're in the same category in that they have the same problem, in that they both pioneered some sort of tech or mechanic that made them very popular. Nouns being perpetual auctions, and then Degen being social tipping. But they both fall into the same problem of like, what does this brand actually stand for? And why should I,
Mm,
if a degen clone launches and manages to get the token in as many people's hands and has the same market cap, what is the reason that I should build in the degen ecosystem rather than building in the alternative ecosystem, right? And I don't think that question is answered. I think my attraction to Hire was immediately from day one. There was a broad but very specific thesis around, on-chain optimism, and specifically like the creative and art direction was set by a very small group of active participants early on, Light being, I think, the primary driver there. But people resonated with that, and then you had all of these creatives come into the ecosystem that were pushing that forward in a diverse but
yeah.
still aligned set of ways, right? So I think if you ask me how do you recreate the Hire playbook, I don't know that I would be able to answer that very concisely, because I think it was just right time, right place, right people. But the outcome that we've gotten over the last 4 months is you have this decentralized community of people with a fully distributed token and no collective treasury per se. There's multiple treasuries throughout the ecosystem, but that are all pushing in this direction of on-chain optimism, and we can get to like what that means and how that's manifested. And I think that's what really drew me to this particular community. Like, it is the
Yeah.
first community that I have seen in the crypto ecosystem outside of like Ethereum itself that has managed to have a very pointed brand without having, to your point, like that core team that is stewarding things and pushing it forward.
Yeah, I agree. And when I was looking into it higher, because it's so concentrated on that one specific goal, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like people are understanding what they can do with it. Whereas DGen, it's more experimental.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like this is kind of a perfect conjoinment of your two theses, like your tokenized community play and also what you always wanted to do at forefront, right? Because that's how I'm assuming that's why you started believe in something, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
be able to fund ideas and like build that community larger and larger. So why don't you tell us like quickly like what is believe in something and like how you got that started on
Yeah.
higher?
So, Believe in Something is basically a grant giving organization that is scouting and funding what I'm calling writer practitioners, but really like why specifically that archetype? It's because those are the people, in my opinion, who are the foundations and catalyzers of the types of scenes that would make for good tokenized communities, right? So in higher, yes, it is a decentralized ecosystem. There's no core team, but there was very clearly a small group of folks who pushed that culture forward initially that led to the network growing and forming around the collective mission. I think that's true for every scene on the internet. And we need more scene builders in order to be able to use these tools. So fundamentally, I think that's what Believe in Something is. It's like, how do we go out and find these people, highlight their writing and their thinking, and help them catalyze their own scene? That's not to say that we're then going to be like, okay, yo, launch a token, right? Like, all we want to
Hmm.
do is, find, spotlight, and fund. But I think the inevitable outcome of this is that if you combine all of the excitement that's happening in the Farcaster ecosystem with what Samya from FBI is calling like
Yes.
on-chain capitalized networks, with really talented scene builders who are very passionate about what they're doing and are good at articulating it while also building in those ecosystems that they're trying to articulate, I think you'll get some magical things happening, right? So
Oh
that's
yeah.
fundamentally what Believe in Something is trying to do, is just like, if the limiting reagent is people who believe in something, let's go find and pull those people in so that they could do some cool stuff.
Okay, that very solid. And I see like, of course, Samya is a scene builder, especially
Mm-hmm.
for FBI. How do you find more people that are in that same boat and can build something in the same sort of category as FBI? How is like the scene with Believe in Something going right now? Like, are you able to like find those folks? Like, how does this pan out? How do you like first of all find those people? Who are the right people? And how do you help them grow in that sense? You are giving them an amount to use, but like I feel like it goes more, you need more than that just to get them
Yeah,
up the ground.
I think that's a good question, because in a lot of ways, Believe in Something is like a meta scene, right? It's like a
Hmm.
scene trying to find scenes. And the one thing that's become increasingly obvious is that one of the mistakes that like crypto communities have run into over the last 5 years is that they try to lean too much into this like decentralization and permissionlessness dance. And often what that means is like, you're decreasing the quality of the work being done because you're trying to let everybody participate. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you want to get good work done, not everybody should be participating, right? Or at least not everybody should be participating in like the core actions of moving projects forward. I think Samya has done an amazing job of this with FBI, in that him and the core FBI team are pushing the community forward and have like a very clear vision in mind of like what they want to happen and how they want to see it grow. And obviously that's evolving over time. And then for individual projects as they're set, you'll pull in the rest of the network to get them to contribute. But like at
Hmm.
the end of the day, it's the core FBI team that is calling the shots and pushing things forward. And I think the same is happening in Hire. I think the same is happening in Proxy Studio. I think the same is happening in Deep.
Yes.
It's the network is the product and the core team is building the network, right? But
Hmm.
you have to be very opinionated and exercise good taste and be very picky about who you're allowing to participate early on and who you're not allowing to participate early on
Yes.
to make that happen. So I'm realizing this with Believe in Something right now. It's like, I want to optimize for, success and taste.
Hmm.
Secondarily, I want there to be high participation, but I don't want participation to come at the expense of, pushing the mission forward. And I think we saw this at Forefront when we were trying to maximize participation. Not only did things move very slowly, but like, for example, when I was running Forefront Journal and we were publishing on a consistent basis, like, it became very obvious to me that, like, if we wanted to have a top-notch publication, I couldn't accept every pitch, right?
Yeah.
But if we were saying that this is like a decentralized social outlet or media outlet where people could publish whatever they wanted, that's not possible, right? So yeah, to get back to your question, I think the core learning and the thing that I'm finding is, like, you need to find those really talented people, because if you don't have the folks at the core who are pushing things forward, then, like, the entire movement will just fizzle out.
Okay. I'm so Jihad, you're amazing. Like, these like points you're making are like all the things I've always thought about but did not know how to express properly, and you just did that. This idea of the core community pushing forward people that are actually shipping is what has always been needed in Web3 and early Web3. Everything was so, like, they wanted to make everything so open so that anyone and everyone can join in Web3, but at the same time, people were joining only for the incentives, and there was no real participation. I think, like, a lot of DAOs face this, right? Like, I feel like DAOs were too early. But in a way, like, it was a good thing, obviously, because we've learned from that. And now what we're seeing on Farcaster with these tokenized communities, especially, like, I can talk for FBI. The smallest, like, for example, purging. I don't know if you saw, like I think every 2 weeks or so, they purge people from on-chain rookies, which is basically like a beginner type group chat for new folks that don't know what to do on Farcaster. If you're not active on there, you're getting purged, right? Like, yes, that chat is meant for anyone and everyone, but you have to be actively participating and you have to actively contribute. And if you're not, you're out, right? Like, and they're very strict on that. Like, FBI, you can be participating, but if you're not participating enough, you're out. So I think because of that quality control, that is the reason FBI is able to ship very well. And that's why we're doing so good. And I'm seeing this exactly like you mentioned with Proxy Studio as well. And I think if we have more of this in the ecosystem and we get to such a level of just high quality communities and very well leveraged products, like, that is when we start bringing in more folks into the ecosystem, right? Because if they see quality, they will come, not for the incentives. Like, we really need to change that narrative.
I agree with that 100%. I think the interesting part of this idea is 2021, 2022, when DAOs were all hot. What you saw is, like, things got too decentralized and nobody was actually pushing anything forward within a given DAO. And then people were like, okay, we need to create more structure and we need to have these guidelines and we both on-chain and off-chain mechanisms to make this look more like a company, and then figure out what needs to be decentralized and permissionless and what needs to actually push forward, right? And it's like both camps were true, or both camps were right. We did want to explore what it looked like to have a decentralized network and what the opportunity was there. And also, you can only get work done if you have some sort of centralized entity that is pushing forward the work. Problem at the time, I think, is we were trying to combine these into, like, the same entity and trying to find, like, the balance. And in reality, what they need to be is independent but, collaborative things. And what I mean by that is, like, in Hire, you have these core teams that are working on individual projects, but then the network is completely open and decentralized, and anybody in FBI, you're starting to see that a lot more, where individuals are starting, like, initiatives and projects and pushing them forward, but the network, while it has rules as to, like, who can join particular spaces and what have you, like you mentioned, like, is the thing that is open. We should not apply the traits and characteristics of a network to the traits and characteristics of, like, a success. And we learned the lesson. Like, that's actually happening now. But yeah, I think that was the big
Yeah. And another quick point, when you tailor the network to such a way where they understand this is what I need to do to stay in the community, the projects that individuals start to spin out. And I feel like we're just now realizing, I think, like, I'm now realizing, you guys realized way earlier on, like, that this is the way to go. So I think this is a very exciting time, because this is the start of, like, a very early tokenized community. We have a very few right now. I'm excited to see, like, where this starts going. Now, I'm very new to Hire, actually. I didn't know what Hire was until Kavusha started the running club. So I was like, okay, this is very cool. I thought it was like an athletic themed network. And then I looked into Hire. I'm like, okay, this is not really athletic based. Athletics is just a use case. And I see a lot of IRL use cases for hire.
Mhm.
And some two or three things started clicking to me. Like yesterday I went to the cricket game, India versus Pakistan, right? Like
Oh yeah.
having that IRL energy is, I think, very different in the sense of, like, I was wearing a Coinbase cap. I had my bet on bracket. I don't know if you saw that photo. I took a photo of myself
Yeah.
at the game. People are like, what are you holding up? I'm like, oh, this is like my bet on chain. They're like, what does that mean? They're betting on like DraftKings and stuff. Of course, that's limited to a specific community. They were first of all shocked that you can bet on blockchain, and two, you can bet with a global community, which you can't really do on any other, betting apps, right?
Mhm.
And this one thing clicked, like, we need small, like, more IRL, I guess, I don't know how to like word this, like more IRL initiatives like that.
Mhm.
Hire is just one, right? It's like the idea around this is that we're not pushing for to onboard more Web3, in the sense we're not pushing the Web3 narrative. We're just pushing the IRL idea. So it's just hire athletics is just running. All you need to do is run. And then as you are part of this community, you're slowly interacting with the Web3 elements of it, right? Like you're getting
Right.
like these small perks from the Web3 ecosystem. And I think that is the way to go about onboarding things. And that's why I'm really excited about Hire. This is my side of things in terms of the IRL narrative. I'm still yet to explore that side, but I just feel like there's something there with that, which I'm really excited about. But so with you and Believe in Something, are there like collaborations happening across like the different Hire initiatives in a way? How do you guys, is there like there's no community of sorts. Is there like a single platform where you guys like talk and stuff?
There's a bunch of different things. I think the primary one right now is there's a Telegram called Hire Builders, and it's just like
Oh,
if you are building a project in the Hire ecosystem, somebody will like throw you into the Telegram, and you have a new channel and you like give updates to folks. But it's not like a quote unquote official Telegram of the community. And I'm sure like Higher Athletics has its own comms, and Believe in Something has its own group chat, and all of these different things. Going back a bit, I want to get to your IRL URL point because I think that's really strong. But backing up, I think the alignment between all of these different projects in the Higher community is the network. And in my opinion, like the network is defined by people holding the token, and the goal of each and every one of these initiatives, I guess, is, I guess they each have different primary goals, but the secondary goal is to get the token into aligned people's hands. Not
mm,
because you want number to go up, although I'm sure if you get more tokens into more people's hands, number will go up and that'll be better for everybody. But because if you're growing the network in a way, to the point that you made earlier, that is like very well curated, and in this sense it's curated based off of people who are participating in these aligned initiatives, then that means if I go and start a new project, I have a much richer, larger, high quality community to immediately tap into. So like the network itself is the product, and people are able to build companies, organizations, projects, whatever it might be, on top of this network that is getting more and more curated over time based off of the work of the previous initiatives and the previous projects, right? So that was like a massive unlock for me that I did not realize until maybe 3 weeks ago, where I was like, oh snap, like this is the value of having a token, right? It does not actually need to govern anything per se. It's just this
yeah,
way of seeing who is aligned, and arguably how aligned they are, how they receive the tokens, what they participated in based off of their wallet activity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So going to the IRL URL stuff, I think for me, like I've always been really scared to shill crypto to any of my non-crypto friends,
mm,
because largely it's always like, okay, buy this token. What if the token goes down? Then they're going to get mad at me because they lost money.
yeah,
But with the Run Club, it's like, okay, yeah, just show up to Higher Run Club. Oh, what is Higher Run Club? Well, we're just going to go on a run. But then, you have receipts. That's how you upload your run and prove that you like actually like committed to and perform that activity. That's on chain. Well, why does it matter that it's on chain? To your point, it's now a global network. You could see who these people are and what else they have participated in, what else they have done. It's connected to Farcasters. So now you could actually socialize with these people that you did this IRL activity with, plus people all across the globe that are doing very similar things. So I think for me, the IRL stuff is just a way of like being able to hit up my friends and say, hey, come to this thing that I know they're
yeah.
already interested in. And to your point, it's like a gateway to
Yes.
the ecosystem.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God, I'm so excited right now. I'm like so many thoughts and like
No,
narratives are
but like,
popping into my head.
tell me a little bit more. So when you were at the game and you were talking about like bracket and the on-chain bet, how did you explain on-chain? And then when you
Yeah.
did, what was the justification that you gave as to why you made the bet on-chain rather than DraftKings or whatever it might be?
Okay. So, two things. Everyone knows Drake. right? And everyone knows Drake was betting on the IPL before,
Hmm.
and he made a massive amount. So he did the same bet for this game as well on India. And so I told him, everyone knew Drake bet, right? And he bet using, I think, Stake or some app, and he bet using Bitcoin. Bitcoin, yeah.
Hmm.
So one guy came up to me. He's like, he was the one taking my photo actually. He was like, "What are you holding up?" He's like, I was like, "Oh, this is like a bet on the blockchain." He goes, "Oh, like Drake." I'm like, "No, I mean, yes, like Drake, but." He goes, why didn't he just use like DraftKings or like whatever other crypto, like other betting apps on there? And I was like, that's a valid question. Like, I just, first of all, there's no community for me on DraftKings. It's more of like me and my brother because like we just wanted to bet because everyone else was betting. I personally don't have a betting community, right? I know maybe others do. And so why I bet on chain is because I'm doing this globally with fans in India as well. And they're like, "What? You're doing it with fans in India?" I'm not able to do that. I always wanted to do that. And I was like, that's what on-chain unlocks. And he goes, so when you say on-chain, do you mean blockchain? And I'm like, yes, the blockchain. And he goes, at that point, I didn't want to explain to him like what the whole blockchain scene is. I was trying to be as like simple as possible. I was like, just go on this website, check it out. You can bet on any game on here. And everyone betting on here is from the global community. And at the same time, it's just easier and it's more gamified in a way. I don't think DraftKings is. It's just like people are on there to make money.
Yep.
Bracket, it's for the community. That's the difference, is what I basically told them, community versus making money. And I feel like they're more drawn to the community side of things because, okay, this is my first time at a cricket game. The community in that space, absolutely insane. People, I was shocked. Okay, I did not expect it to be like that. I will go back to a cricket game just to feel that sense of community and
Hmm.
pride. And I think that emotional attachment is what really drives people to come into that environment. And I like
Yeah,
this community narrative is what's going to drive the Web3 space forward. So I think that was my takeaway from the game.
I agree. Yeah, I think again the takeaway there is like people just want to be a part of something. Actually, it's not that people just want to be a part of something because I think that's been a thesis in Web3 as well, where it's like, oh, just give people something to be a part of. I think it's more than that. It's like give people something to believe in, let them
Yeah.
feel something, let them stand for something, and then let them take an action that lets them do that alongside others, right? And
Yes.
it could be as
Yes.
simple as a bet, but it could be as simple as going to a run club. It could also be creating an entire social network and participating in that in the case of Warpcast. But yeah, no, like I think I need to hit up a bunch of my Pakistani friends were pissed, bro. Like I'm like, yo, put your money where your mouth is now. Go to bracket. But
Yeah, yeah, and no, actually, a very beautiful thing. Obviously, everyone knows like the hype of
yeah,
India versus Pakistan. Like in front of me, there were the like full Pakistan supporters, right?
mm,
But it wasn't like it was like a fun banter back and forth, and I feel like that can be replicated on chain without having to be like super competitive, right? It was a
yeah,
fun banter. Like if Pakistan hit an out, one of our folks from the India side would be like, don't worry," like USA or something. They said some because USA beat
yeah.
Pakistan. So it was a fun banter. There was no like actually competitiveness. Of course, some aspects of it have that competitiveness, but that's what makes it fun. Um, and also, I wanted to bring back higher athletics, the running club. I was talking to Victor about receipts. He's building receipts.
Mhm.
He was like, why haven't you ever used receipts before? And I was like, I always saw receipts. I never used it. I always loved the concept. And I was like, why didn't I ever use it? Because I never tracked my runs. I didn't, for me personally, I don't really track my runs. I just go run for fun. But when I saw higher athletics and I joined the running club, I immediately downloaded Strava. I started using receipts. I'm like, why am I doing this? And it was because everyone else was doing it too. And then I felt like part of this really cool community. With receipts alone, I was alone. I found there was no reason for me to do it. Yes, you can share it on Farcaster, but that's not the same as like doing it with other people. And yeah, I was telling Victor, like, Hire just gave me a sense of community to run with, where I'm not really competing with anyone on there. It's just that everyone else is running. And this
Mhm.
is a way for me to like run with others that, having to do that IRL running club scene, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah, so that's what I'm excited about.
it's so interesting because I had a similar experience where, like, I'd go, I wasn't a huge runner, but like for my workouts, I'd throw on my Apple Watch and I'd track what I was doing on any given day. And then you've got your friends on like, Apple Health or whatever, and you could see like, oh, this person completed a workout, person completed a workout. But like outside of the 5 people that I have, that I'm friends with on my watch, there's nothing there. And there's
Yes.
Yes, it's still
Yeah.
it's people that I know personally. It's people that I'm very close friends with, but that doesn't mean there's a sense of community. Because I think the missing
Ah,
aspect of
yes.
community is like, why are we all here doing this together, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. I this is the unlock here. Even
Hmm.
with betting, you're doing it with close friends. There's no community.
Right.
I like to relate this to Minecraft, okay? Because like your Minecraft online friends, I would go back on the same server, faction server, and play with the same like group of people, like, community, even though I never knew them personally. And I feel like that just felt a lot more because yes, to a certain extent, you have like a friend group, but that's not enough. And this global on-chain economy that Base is building, that like Farcaster is building, I feel like it's just when people realize that, everyone will come on Web3.
Does that say anything to you about like what friendship is? Like we're using the term friend versus community,
Friendship.
like
Yes.
here. How would you define the difference?
I feel like it's a Venn diagram, right? Friends are people you have IRL experiences with, and obviously, like people you connect to on all different levels. Community, I feel like, is you don't really need to know them personally. As long as you guys are aligned on one topic, that and you have people around that one topic, that's what defines a sense of community. Versus like with friends, you don't need to have the community. It's just more of like a emotional attachment. I don't know how to describe it, but of
So
course it's like a Venn diagram.
yeah, I think the Venn diagram is the right way. Like you could have friends within your community, but that doesn't necessarily mean you are friends with your entire community because the reason it is a community is like alignment around a particular set of like actions and values. That doesn't mean you love everybody.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if this is a good analogy, but you know how like sometimes you just tell a stranger everything about yourself and it just
Mhm.
feels so good. I feel like you can do that in community, but not with a set of friends. Because with a community, there's no like, I think attachment, right?
Mm.
Like with a community, you can decide how much of yourself you want to give. With your friends, it's like you have to give like your entire self, otherwise you're not friends anymore.
I think some people will listen to this and argue that like the type of community that you're describing is very surface level.
Okay, I agree. I need to think more on this, but
But no,
that just, yeah,
I think we're directionally correct here. Like I think
yeah,
there is a distinction. There's it's overlapping in some capacity, but I think we need to work on our definitions a bit because I think that'll actually help us figure out like okay, what is the type of community that we are trying to create on chain more specifically.
hmm,
And then us on a personal level, like what is the overlap between our on-chain communities and the friends that we have.
yeah, yeah. Definitely a very interesting direction. So your thing is called believe in, right?
Believe
Yes,
in
believe in.
believe in something.
Believe in something, okay?
Yeah.
Jihad, what is that you believe in? Taking all of this like thesis stuff aside, what is that you what do you believe in?
I wrote like the first believe in something initiative was actually a prompt, and it was to get people to talk about like what they believe in. And I think varying levels of success because the way that I worded the prompt, I was specifically trying to get people to talk about like ideas that they believe in that drive their work. Because at the end, people can say, "I believe in love. I believe in honesty. I believe in whatever these like big virtues." Right? That's interesting to me, but that's not as interesting as the more unique ideas that you believe are like pushing your work and your life forward relative to the others. And I think those are the types of ideas that you build community around. You don't build communities have love, but you don't build a community around the
On
concept of
love.
right. So for me, I think like using that definition, right? Because I could say I'm a Muslim, so I believe in X, Y, and Z. But again, I think
Mhm.
that's less interesting for the sake of this conversation. I believe that we're at a unique period of time where the technology that we're using on a regular basis is not just like mediums through which we create content, but they actually allow us to shape the media themselves. And what I mean by that is like with a book, and this is a really bad example, but with a book, it's like, yes, you could write a book, but like the book is the medium. You're constrained to like, books have pages, books have chapters, books have whatever it might be. And then you as an author are writing a book, right? With the internet, it was like, okay, the website is your medium, right? There's obviously much more
Mhm.
creativity unlocked, but like you are trapped within the confines of this is, you create a website and like this is the bucket through which you're exercising your creativity. I think crypto and AI basically unlocked ways for us to not only be creative within mediums, but to like shape new media itself. Like we're now talking about like different forms of organizations on this conversation. We're talking about different shapes of networks. We're talking about like different business models that fundamentally shape how people are able to create. And then with AI, like the acceleration of content production means that you
Yes.
can get a lot more creative with like what it is that you're producing. Like the idea in crypto of a collection being an individual piece of work rather than, you know, a painting. I think Jack Butcher said this. Like Jack Butcher was like, I view O'Peppins not as a collection of work, but like the collection itself is a single piece of work because
Mm.
my creative thinking went into like how this collection is going to play out over time. So yeah, like that is the idea that I'm really excited about right now, and the thing that I believe in, and that is shaping and pushing forward a lot of my work is like that is true. And with great power comes great responsibility. And we now
Mhm.
have the opportunity to like imbue not just the content that we're creating, but the media that we're helping shape with
Yeah.
ethics and values that are going to impact others. And therefore we need to be a lot more intentional and thoughtful around like what it is that we believe, why we're doing certain things, why we're creating certain things, and how that's going to impact the communities, networks, and, you know, things that we're a part of.
Love, love that. Now that you've said that, what are your thoughts on Far Side and how can this be a concentrated bet in terms of shaping the community that this is going out towards?
I think with any podcast, it's like, I mean, I'm going to flip this question on you because I'm curious to hear what you think. But I think with any podcast, the number one way that you're exercising your own tastes and values is in the curation of guests. It's not even necessarily the questions that you ask because the questions are inherently dictated by who your
Mhm.
guest is and what the interesting stuff that you want to get out of them. But like who you decide to bring on the podcast, I think is the way that you're exercising your taste. And as the audience for Farside grows, you will have like more and more outsized influence over like who you choose to highlight and who ends up getting spotlighted within the broader Farcaster community. Because, you know, if people love Farside and people respect your taste, then bringing me on as a guest is going to give me clout because you selected me, right? So
Oh,
I think that's like the way that I think about, you know, podcast curation. But then the question I would flip on you then is like, what does that taste look like right now? Like, what are the characteristics that you're looking for in guests, and why are you picking person A over person B to bring them
Mhm.
onto the podcast?
Very good question. And I am very aligned with what you said because that is the direction I've been planning to go towards. Picking out the right people, right? The people don't even necessarily have to be big, right? I had Jesse on my podcast, right? I'm not looking for folks. Of course, I love Jesse, but I'm not looking for like that level of cloud,
Mhm.
right? People that are building in very concentrated bets is kind of the goal. You would believe in something, Proxy Studio, right? Like those are the type of people I want to highlight. People that are actually driving this ecosystem forward with a very clear vision, and very clear vision that is unique. And that's kind of like the direction I'm heading towards. And I feel like when people hear that clearness, that clear thinking, that's just going to help them understand what they should start building in this space as well, rather than kind of something very broad. I didn't want to be broad. I think a lot of podcasts are starting out there that essentially they all say the same thing, have the same guests. I really wanted to do something that is a lot more niche in the sense of who the guests are, what are they building. If I personally really enjoy what they're building, I want them on this podcast. Like they don't have to be the biggest person out there. Like even if they have 5 followers and I really am enjoying their content, and what they're building, I really think they can grow into something. It's basically, honestly, it's like what you're doing with believe in something, but like podcast
Right.
style. Yeah.
I think more people need to think about their projects that way. Like, I think Proxy also thinks about Proxy Studio that way. Is like, how are we deciding what projects we work on? Well, we're actually just curating the people and ideas that we think we want to take bets on, and then we're going and collaborating with those people in those ecosystems.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way that he collaborates with them is by like, you know, launching projects, creating software, whatever it might look like for him. And I think it's much more diverse there. The way that you exercise that taste is by bringing on podcast guests. The way that Believe in Something exercises that taste is by giving grants and doing these like collaborative drops. But I think, again, it's all just different versions of exercising taste around a particular thesis.
Taste.
And that's, I mean, this is an entire other conversation, but like when we're talking about
Yeah.
like future of media and like how media is going to monetize and what that looks like, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like individual creators and communities exercising taste, and then people paying to see more of that taste, not necessarily get access to the content.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what's worked with like all the popular podcasts you see right now. It's because of
Mm-hmm.
the guests. Of course, you have a great podcast host, but also because of their taste in guests.
Yeah.
Why is Lex Freeman so popular? He has amazing guests on his like podcast. But yeah, I 100% agree with you on this. This is just like I have you're helping me think so clearly. Yeah, like this is just like I have so many thoughts. I'm gonna like write all this down and like send it to you later. Like we can continue jamming on this. I'm really excited about like what you're gonna do with Believe in Something. And also, side note, for hire, I feel like a really fun tagline is the sky is the limit. I don't know why. I just like
Cast
like,
it.
oh, this is
Cast it.
I'm gonna cast it. The sky is the limit, yeah. But I'm really excited about this funnel. Twitter is like this broad scope of people. You have it narrowed down into Farcaster. That's going even narrower into these concentrated bets. And that term concentrated bets I'm getting from Samya because that's exactly his vision. He wants people to drive stuff forward. And
Yep.
I need more people like you guys. We need more people like you guys in this
And
ecosystem.
like you, dude. I think
Hopefully me.
Definitely you. It's already you. But I think the funnel is a good analogy, and like the Farcaster part of the funnel still needs to get much bigger. And the one question that I ask myself every day is like whether or not these concentrated bets are actually contributing to expanding the funnel if we're only talking about it on Farcaster. I think the answer is no.
Yes.
So
yes.
Better job of like going on Twitter, going IRL, wherever it might be, to bring more people into the funnel.
So that's actually the two things I want to start doing. And I think this conversation really helped narrow me down into like those two funnels, the IRL thing, and also posting and doing more of Farsight on Twitter. Hopefully, like people recognize the quality and that will drive them into the Farcaster scene. But that's the kind of goal with On-Chain Summer. So let's hope that pans out well. But yeah, before we end off though, I have a fun rapid fire section for you.
Yeah, okay.
So I have like 4 questions. I need you to like answer rapidly, but very short questions, don't worry, and feel free to expand on your answers if you would like. All right, first question: Forefront or Farcaster?
Oh man, I'm going to say Forefront just because like that was my baby for a while. But I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm picking.
You have to choose basically like right now. If you have to choose an ecosystem that you prefer.
Oh, I mean, this is easy then. Farcaster, because Forefront has sort of winded down as a project. So definitely all in. And Carlos, who is working on Forefront with me, is all in on Farcaster as well. So I don't think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Would you rather have 50,000 degen or the OG NFT?
OG NFT.
Why?
I think the OG NFT is going to be very, very valuable come, a few years from now when the market or when the ecosystem is much larger. I also think like NFTs are underrated now. They were overrated 2 years ago and are underrated today.
Yeah. Awesome. Who are top 3 builders that you have your eyes on in the space right now?
Proxy, Light, Kagusha, I think are the 3.
Yeah.
I mean, they all came up in conversation here.
Amazing.
But
yeah.
like I can give a million honorable mentions to that big 3 as well. So
love it. I'm excited for all 3 as well. They're amazing. All right, last question. If you can go anywhere in this world, where would you want to travel to and why?
Basic answer, but I've been itching to go to Tokyo or just Japan more broadly.
Tokyo. Okay.
So I'm bullish on Farcaster or Farcon Tokyo. Like I want that to happen. I don't care about the LA.
God.
People. I don't care about the New York people. Like in Japan.
Yes. Oh my God, that would be amazing. I would totally come to Farcon Tokyo for sure.
That would be so hype.
Yeah. Well, you did a good job. I need to make my rapid fires a little more harder next time, but this was great. Thank you so much, Jihad.
The point of rapid fires is they're supposed to be easy, so I think that was good. Like I would have been stressed.
I was trying to throw in some like controversial questions, but then I just wanted to give you an easier time. Yeah, next time I'm gonna throw in harder questions.
All right. We'll run it back eventually for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Jihad. This was really, really amazing. I had so much fun.
I did.
A lot of interesting things.
I did too. Hit me up with your ideas. I'm excited to continue jamming, and yeah, appreciate you having me on.
Yes, amazing. All right. Thank you, Jihad. We'll chat soon. Bye.